What's going on, guys? And finally here to do my video for the week. I've got a lot of requests, people telling me, hey, you need to start making videos every 2 days again, which is not going to happen, not my schedule anymore. But big news this week in Tigers baseball. It was early this week. I was on my way to go up to the gym, and I believe it was Tuesday. And I'm about to leave, and my brother is like, hey, Dave Dombrowski just got released out of his contract. I'm like, what? Are you serious? No way in hell. Because here's the backstory of this. Dave Dombrowski was in his final year of his contract. And there was no talks about extending him, but Dave Dombrowski was talking like he was going to be back next year. Just as a matter of fact, earlier this past week, he's talking about they do expect to contend next year. They do expect to compete for World Series because there was a lot of people mad that for some reason people were mad that the Tigers sold off at the deadline, and they felt that the Tigers could still be winners this year because they're only 3.5 out of the wild card at the time when they sold. But here's the thing. They were 3.5, yeah. But the Blue Jays just got David Price. The Blue Jays got Troy Tulowitzki. And the Astros and Angels, whoever doesn't win the West is going to win the wild card. And you're not going to jump Toronto. And Toronto is playing the Yankees right now, who beat them last night. You know, they haven't lost a game when Tulowitzki starts. You know, they've only lost, I think, 1 game since getting David Price. So, I mean, you're not going to catch them either. So, yeah, you're 3.5, but it's more like 10. I mean, when you got a team that gets shit-wrecked by Boston, you know, goes to Tampa and drops a couple, you win your first series in nearly a month against the Royals the other day, you're not gonna win this year. I'm sorry. Yeah, you know, everyone else in the American League is mediocre. That's why, you know, being a couple games under 500, you're still floating, you know, in the second back half of the wild card spot. But it's irrelevant. So, anyways, nonetheless, Dombrowski was pretty much talking like, you know, he was going to be back next year. You know, he said we fully expect to compete next year. This offseason, we're going to look at starters. You know, he's talking, like I said, like he's going to be back. His contract is going to be extended. It's like, okay, cool. And I want him to be back. Because let's get one thing straight here, guys. Dave Dombrowski is the greatest general manager in Detroit Tigers history. Let's not get this messed up here. When it was announced that Dave Dombrowski was released from his contract by Mike Ilitch, there was actually people happy about this. Now, Dombrowski, if they win a World Series in the next 3 years under Al Avila, who Avila has been in the or Avila, as he likes to be called, but I'm gonna call him Avila just like his kid. He has been in the Tigers with Dave Dombrowski, his right-hand man for the last 14 years. He's one of the, you know, guys that runs the farm system. You know, he's a guy that, you know, runs all the scouting and all that BS, international scouting. So he's pretty much an advisor to Dave Dombrowski. So he knows a lot about this team. But there's actually people happy about Dave Dombrowski being let go out of his contract. How in the hell can you be happy about this man who came to this franchise when they were 43 and 119? The year before, in 2002, they won 53 games. He went and made this franchise relevant again. When Dave Dombrowski came, Juan Gonzalez was offered a 10-year deal by the Tigers. They were such a crappy franchise that he said no. No, flat out. People didn't want to play here. This wasn't an appealing team. I mean, look, since 1987 to 2006, you didn't have one playoff appearance. For Christ's sakes, they didn't win a division title till 2011, and they've been in the AL Central since 1997. From 1987 to 2005, they didn't make it to the playoffs. I think they had 2 teams in that time span that were above 500. He took a franchise where you had your cornerstones were guys like Bobby Higginson and Dimitri Young, you know, Jeremy Bonderman. He went and drafted Justin Verlander. He went and added Pudge Rodriguez's. He added Carlos Guillen and Magler Ordonez and Placido Polanco, drafted Curtis Granderson, added guys like Craig Monroe. You know, as much as I hate him, and I thought he was overrated as shit, Brandon Inge was a part of a core that he had. And he did have, 06, he was really good in the first half. He hit 28 home runs. 09, he was really good in the first half. And, we flunked out in the home run derby. But, he provided a couple years. It's not often, as shitty as he was, it's not often you find a player that sticks around on your franchise for 9 years. So you could add him to that mix. He got guys like Rick Porcello. He was responsible for the trading Granderson and got Austin Jackson and Max Scherzer. Guys that were main pieces of the core that they went on this run from 2011 to the last year. Main pieces of this core, like your Verlanders, that got you to the World Series in 06, or in 2012. This man flat out took a Hall of Fame player when he was 25 years old, gave them Cameron Maybin, Andrew Miller, and a couple other guys, and got Miguel Cabrera. Yeah, he went and he got Dontrelle Willis with him, and they extended him right away, which was fucking stupid. But he went and traded. This is one of the worst trades in MLB history. Florida did not get any use out of any player that they acquired in that deal. And what did they get out of Miguel Cabrera? Look how many times since he's been in a Tigers uniform, that man has finished top 5 in the MVP. 2010, he was number 2. And if the Tigers were in 81 and 81, he could have been MVP. But he wasn't. You get back-to-back MVPs out of him and 11 and 12, a triple crown. Not to mention Verlander, you get 12 and 13, you get back-to-back MVPs out of him. You get an MVP out of Verlander, who he drafted in 11. You get a Cy Young out of Verlander. You get a Cy Young out of Scherzer, who he acquired. He got Doug Fister, who was a major core piece to your rotation, even though you traded him away. He went and got Anibal Sanchez and Omar Infante when you didn't have a second baseman and you were still short one starter. He had a rotation of Porcello, Fister, Sanchez, Scherzer, and Verlander. He assembled all that. He had an infield of Johnny Peralta when he got him in 2010. Another one traded he fleeced him for. Because I forget who they traded. I think they traded I can't remember. It was some first baseman they traded him for. He wasn't good whatsoever. But they traded Johnny Peralta for him. And look at Peralta, 2 All-Star appearances as a Tiger. Silver Slugger as a Tiger. The dude did nothing. This team, its success is all because of Dave Dombrowski. Now, he's had some duds. Yeah. I can't sit here and say Dombrowski's been perfect. Every single year, Dombrowski, I was reading an article on Fangraphs, Dave Cameron. Dave Dombrowski's bullpens since 2002 have been 25th or worst almost every single year. And every single year we heard the same thing out of Dave Dombrowski. We feel we can upgrade in-house. We feel we can upgrade internally. We feel we have pitchers in-house. We can get this done. But here's the thing. How in the hell can you upgrade from in-house when throughout the year, every year when you're using in-house options, they continue to falter? Every year we watch them pass on guys like Javi Lopez or Sergio Romo or like this past year, Pat Neshek and Luke Gregerson. There's been guys years after years. Now, he had occasionally made a splash in free agency. He went and got Joaquin Benoit, who was absolutely outstanding for the Tigers those 3 years, and it was one of the biggest screw-ups not bringing him back. They went and they signed Jose Valverde. Valverde, was perfect in 2011. He was absolutely outstanding. And then they signed Joe Nathan. That was a flunk. What are you going to do on that? A mishap. But, that was one of Dombrowski's biggest things. He couldn't build a bullpen. But talking about from building a team standpoint, for people to sit here on Twitter and Facebook and, people telling me, I'm so glad he's gone. If they win a World Series in the next 3 years and JD Martinez, Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander, Anibal Sanchez, Nick Castellanos, Jose Iglesias, if these guys are the main core that Al Avila uses to build around this team, They better fucking send Dave Dombrowski a ring, because all these players, all this core, these last 4 years of success, relevancy since 2006 and on, is all because of Dave Dombrowski. And for people not to give him his due and give him his credit and be happy he's gone, you're absolutely fucking moronic. I am sorry. You are a fucking moron. To think about all these players, all the success. Think about this. When the Tigers went back-to-back in 11 and 12 to the playoffs, that was the first time they went back-to-back in the playoffs since 1944 and 1945. In their history, the Tigers had only gone back-to-back playoffs, I think 3 times. Because in the early 1900s, I think it was like 08 to 11, they made it to the World Series, I think 2 or 3 times. They lost to Pittsburgh and Chicago. They lost to Chicago in 1908, I should say, you know, and they lost to Pittsburgh a couple times, like 1910, 1911, I can't remember. And then in 34 and 35, I think they lost in 34, won 35, lost in 1940 to Cincy, lost in 1944 to St. Louis, won in 45, didn't go back to the World Series till 1968. They should have went in 67 and 68, but they lost on the last day of the season, 67. Won in 68, went back to the playoffs in 72, got ousted by Oakland, didn't go back to the playoffs till 1984, didn't go back to the playoffs again until 1987, and then was completely irrelevant until 2006. So think about this. The Tigers, in the divisional era, 68 and on, 69 and on, my mistake, because 69 is when the divisional era started. The Tigers had only made the playoffs 2 times. They had only won the American League East 2 times. In 4 years, they doubled that, won 4 straight divisions, went to 3 ALCSs, went to a World Series. From 06 to 14, 2 World Series. Yeah, they didn't win them. But this is all because of Dave Dombrowski. This man had the Tigers more relevant, built a better team than anyone in Tigers history. Now we're going to get on with this because I don't want to sit here and suck Dave Dombrowski off all day. I just want to make it clear to you guys, people who are happy Dave Dombrowski's gone, just remember, this man, from 06 to last year, the teams he's built, the players he's brought on, if it wasn't for Dave Dombrowski, you would not have Miguel Cabrera. You would not have J.D. Martinez. You would not have Justin Verlander. Now, I know Verlander's not the Verlander he used to be, but still remember what he brought during their success. You wouldn't have had none of these guys. You wouldn't have Jose Iglesias. You wouldn't have Ian Kinsler, who's doing amazing in the second half. You wouldn't have had Curtis Granderson. You wouldn't have had Max Scherzer. You wouldn't have had Anibal Sanchez. James McCann. This is all because of Dombrowski. So, moving on. Here's the reason why I think the move was made, why they went and released Dombrowski. With these trades made, with Cespedes gone, with Soria gone, with Price gone, Ilitch knows that they're out of the playoff hunt. Much to, I don't care what Al Avila says. I don't care what the players said. That, oh, we're 4 games out. You know, Al Avila in his press conference still stresses they plan winning on the future. Ilitch still plans to, you know, spend money on the team. And how about the Ilitches? You get rid of Dave Dombrowski, a man who put your franchise back on the map. And you can't even, not even Chris Ilitch can't even show up to the fucking press conference to accompany Al Avila. You just throw him out there to the pack of wolves because you're trying to avoid questioning about your decision for Dombrowski releasing him because people know the kind of success he had. And how dare people like Mike Valenti and Terry Foster in 97 won the ticket even question was Dombrowski's era of tenure as GM successful as a Tigers GM because they didn't bring home a World Series title. How can you even question that? And how can the Ilitches not even show up to the conference for the presser? That is a fucking really piss-poor move on their part because they're trying to avoid questioning. But here's why I think he was gone. Since they were out of it, they knew that, and there was no talks of extending Dave Dombrowski. And with jobs like Toronto opening up, they're thinking Zarenzik might get, shit canned in Seattle because that's 2 years in a row since bringing on Lloyd McClendon and signing Robinson Cano. They're going to miss the playoffs. And now Anaheim, because they got, I forget their GM, but after DePoto left, this guy's the temporary GM. They're thinking that, there's open spots for someone like Dombrowski. So my thinking is, with no contract extension in place, out of the playoff hunt, no, they're not going to compete. What was the point of keeping Dombrowski around if you knew that you weren't going to win this year? So I think they let Dombrowski go. This is what I took of it. They let Dombrowski go to give him an opportunity to shop the market, see where he wants to go. Because Dombrowski, he's going to go wherever he wants. When you look at some of his past trades, like I said, the trades he's made, and how he made that, took a franchise that was 43 to 119 and made it a perennial winner on a year in and year out basis. Someone's going to want you on your staff. Whether he wants to be GM, whether he wants to be president, someone is going to hire Dave Dombrowski in without questions asked. Let's get that straight. So I think Ilitch threw Dombrowski a bone, let him go so he could shop the market. And since he knew he wasn't bringing Dombrowski back and no contract talks have happened, give Al Avila a shot to start sculpting this team for the future. That's how I took it. I mean, it makes complete sense. You're not going to bring him back. You have your GM waiting in the wings that you want to continue forward with. You only have a couple of months left. You're out of the race. Why not give him a shot? Why not start letting Avila build the team that he wants to build? Now, moving forward with Avila, I guess Avila is a little bit more analytically minded than Dombrowski. Avila has a very strong grasp of the farm system, the whole team, because like he even said, he was very uniquely qualified for the job, and he's not wrong. I mean, he's a guy that, extremely important to the development of the Tigers farm system, the prospects for the last 15 years that have been brought up. How bad or good that might be. And I mean, he's only can deal with what he has. I mean, Dombrowski hasn't left those guys a lot to work with when it comes to draft picks, especially for a few years there. They were losing their first round pick every year because of the type A free agent signings. So I guess he's more inclined. And, people were also scared, oh, he's got to sign Avila to a long-term deal and he sucks, blah, blah, blah. First off, Avila, yeah, he's not a great hitter, but he brings a lot more than just his bat to the plate. He's a guy that has an above average on base percentage, and yeah, he can't hit, but he doesn't strike out the shit ton. He gets on base at a league average clip, and he calls a good game, and he's versatile. He can play him at first, he can play him at catcher, and I love James McCann, but you can't keep letting James McCann face a lot of righties because righties will, it's going to destroy him because he's not a good hitter against right-handed pitching. Just flat out, you need someone to platoon with McCann. That's just what it is. And whether or not they bring back Avila or not, that remains to be seen. And Al Avila, I should say, is getting confusing with all these Avilas, even said in his press conference that Avila's hitting was actually a burden. He didn't even want to draft his son because he didn't want to have the drama of having his son in an organization he was a part of. But Dombrowski and company took him anyways because he's the best player on the board, and that's how it's been since he got called up. But he even said, it'll be evaluated, and everyone's position will be evaluated come the offseason. This is what he pretty much said. All staff, players will be evaluated, and they will move on from the offseason, but for now, everyone is safe, which we're going to talk about Ausmus here in a second. So all these people scared that he's going to sign Alex to a long-term deal. He even said his hitting was a burden, and everyone will be reviewed. So I honestly think he's going to let Alex go because, like I said, he even said in his presser that he didn't even want to bring Avila on to begin with. He told him not to sign him. So who knows? But they do need someone to platoon with McCann. They just need to because McCann can't face righties. It was just like when they brought on Rajah Davis' first year. He was hitting righties at a good clip, and then he plummeted right back down to earth because they need someone to platoon with him. So moving forward with Avila, it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to bring a lot of the same qualities as Dombrowski. Because this is a guy that rode his coattails the last 14 years. He's been extremely involved in everything that's happened in the organization. He's been right there, right beside Dave Dombrowski. So, I mean, he saw the best of the best, work at it for 14 years. And I think, hopefully it's in good hands. Now, for Ausmus, he said Ausmus is safe. Now, I'm not Ausmus's biggest fan. I'm not. But what he's been given over the last 2 years is a team that they've traded away Prince Fielder's first year there. He barely had his Tigers hat on, and fucking Prince Fielder was gone. They didn't give him a bullpen in the last 2 years. They traded away Doug Fister. You're asking this guy to mold something into something great when you handed him a pile of shit. Let's be honest here. Now, that still is no goddamn excuse for his absolutely atrocious management of the bullpen, his absolutely atrocious management of his pitchers, his absolutely atrocious, his just atrocious game management. It's been terrible the last 2 years. Fucking terrible. And the Tigers right now, how they're playing underneath them. And I wanted to touch on this too. I wish their offense was hitting as hard as Iglesias and McCann are hitting one another in the fucking dugout. And that's another thing. People are sitting here making a big goddamn deal about this. Oh my God, McCann and Iglesias got into a shoving match. Big goddamn deal. You want that kind of shit to happen because that's what fires a team up. Prince Fielder was fighting off people in Milwaukee in his own dugout one year. Kenny Rogers or Punch Rodriguez and Justin Verlander almost got into a fight on a mound one time. Brad Penny and Victor Martinez almost got into a fight a couple years back. This shit happens. Every year. Maybe not every year, every team, but every year there's fights between teammates no matter in the big leagues. It just happens. When you're around these guys for 7 months, when you're losing, when you're going through stretches like this, tensions are going to flare. And that's just what happens. And it's a good thing that you see this because you see that there's still guys that care about winning and want to do this. But for the media to sit here and blow this up, oh, Austin needs to have more control of his team and blah, 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 blah. Fucking can it, dude. Just fucking can it. Because these kind of things happen. It just does. And it's not the first time. And people saying, well, Brad's lost the clubhouse. You can't control the dog. No bullshit. If you knew what goes on behind clubhouse doors with fights in between players and one another, you'd be so surprised. Lou Piniella went after his own player in Cincinnati one time. There's a video of Bobby Bonilla. I forget. I think it was on Pittsburgh. Nearly getting into a fight with his own teammate. I mean, this shit happens. Look at football. Every single training camp, there's a fucking fist fight on every team. It just happens. Stop blowing it up. Now, for Ausmus's fate, when your GM it comes out and says you're safe for now, but you will be reevaluated at the end of the season, you're shit canned, bro. I'm sorry. I am sorry. Like I said, he has dealt with the hand he's been given. People have expected to have this piece of gold since you've had 4 years of the 3 years prior before he came, ALCS's World Series, division every year. And then all of a sudden you see it gradually go down. You barely win the division in Ausmus's first year. And this year it's just plummeted. So it's 2 straight years of going down and down. Like I said, he's just doing what he can give it to him. But he has not proved, even with the talent give, that he is an adequate game manager. For example, Alex fucking Wilson. Why was this guy used in mop-up roles for 3/4 of this goddamn season? It took trading fucking Joaquin Soria to finally get Alex Wilson, a guy who minimum 50 innings pitched has the 4th goddamn lowest ERA among relievers. Yet you were still running Bruce Rendon out there in the 8th. You were still running Jabba Chamberlain out there in the 8th. You were still using Tom Grizzolani. This is like fucking Jim Leland and Phil Koch. You were still using Ian Kroll in situations where you should be using Blaine Hardy. This is a guy, Brad Ausmus, that said he saved Alex Wilson in a loss for extra innings when they had the goddamn lead. These are the reasons why Brad Ausmus, I feel, in my opinion, will be gone at the end of the season. When your GM comes out and says they will be reevaluated, like I said, just keep in mind, he has used, I'm just going to reiterate this one more time, what he's been given. But with all the reasons like this, that shows your manager is not able to handle a game and not manage a game properly game time situations. So, Ausmus is gone. And GMs, when they come in, even though Avila is an in-house guy, typically they want their guy at the helm and they reevaluate their staff. So I think Ausmus is gone. I bet you Gino goes because when Ausmus goes, I think Gino's finally going to call it quits. And it wouldn't be surprised if, this heads start to roll a little bit because he's already promoted David Chad, who's the farm director, and a bunch of other guys. So there's going to be new guys coming up through the system. And there is going to be some guys that are very loyal to Dombrowski and the whole thing that'll play out the rest of this year, the staff I'm talking about, and call it good at the end of the year because they want to go elsewhere because they were Dombrowski guys. So, to wrap this whole thing up, do not be ungrateful little spoiled goddamn brats, Tiger fans, and sit here and go, well, I'm glad Dave Dombrowski's gone. They were terrible. They never won a World Series, and every year they lose because of their bullpen. Just be fucking happy. Look at your goddamn history. Know the history of your team. What Dombrowski built, what he brought you. If it wasn't for Dave Dombrowski, you wouldn't have anything to bitch about because you would be fucking done watching this team by June. These past couple years where people are mad that they're only winning the division by 3 games, 2 games, you wouldn't even have to worry about that because come June 20th, they'd have been fucking 15 games back. And you would have been wondering when's the fucking first Lions preseason game so you can watch them go 0-16. That's what it would have been like if it wasn't for Dave Dombrowski. So from here on out, for the rest of Miguel Cabrera's contract, every time they make the playoffs for the next 3 years, if it's a Miguel Cabrera or JD Martinez or Jose Iglesias and Nick Castellanos or James McCann, any of these guys, I just want you Tiger fans to remember who brought this team together. Who was the man that traded garbage and got Miguel a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest right-handed hitters of all time? Who was the guy that drafted Verlander and Granderson and had Scherzer and Fister and Sanchez and Infante and Peralta? It was Dave Dombrowski. That man made a franchise that was completely irrelevant into something that won for years. And they'll probably still win after this year. Next year, it all depending on what, because like I said, Avila already said Illich is behind him, and they are going to continue to spend money and keep adding on free agency. So they're going to contend for years to come because they still have a nice core in place. I like their core. I really do. But don't sit here and say you're happy Dave Dombrowski's gone without giving this man his credit. He was the greatest general manager in Tigers history. He will find somewhere, and he will continue to make winners. Now, I feel bad for those teams' farm systems wherever he does go. And I hope owners have deep pockets because Dave Dombrowski does like to spend. But just do not forget, when Miguel Cabrera's number is retired out on the left field wall and there's a fucking statue of him, it was Dave Dombrowski that brought him here. And you look up at them banners and see them 4 straight division titles, and you see them ALCS champions, the American League pennants, it was Dave Dombrowski. Just don't forget that. I just want to stress this enough because I was so incredibly pissed off when I saw people praising this, that he was gone, that it was the best thing could have happened to the Tigers, because that's wrong. The man was the greatest of all time. No one's ever had this Tigers franchise running as good as he has. So, it's all I got for you guys today. That's my thoughts, pretty much in a nutshell. Dombrowski wasn't going to be brought back. Illich knew he wasn't going to bring him back. Knows he's out of the playoff hunt. He knows he wants to move forward with Avila. Why not give him 2 months to start shaping his club when it doesn't count anyways? So he can start thinking about what he wants to do for next year and evaluate his staff, his positional players, what he wants to do. So that's all. That's what I basically think the gist of it is. The Cliff Notes version, not the 30. This video's got to be a half hour long. The 30-minute version of me rambling about Dave Dombrowski. So that's pretty much essentially it. I'll be back next week, maybe, depending on if anything happens in the Tigers, with the Tigers. If not, it might be a couple weeks because this team's going to keep 4 games under 500, 3 games under 500. I mean, what am I supposed to talk about? Yeah, Daniel Norris, he went great. Good his first start, and then second start, fucking terrible because he couldn't find the strike zone and he was pitching from behind. He had a 32-pitch inning, yesterday. I mean, what am I supposed to talk about? Matt Boyd looked good. I mean, okay, hey, they went 4-6 this week. Great. I'm not going to come on here and talk about series like that shit anymore. So if anything big happens, anyone else gets traded or moved, I'll be on here. But thank you, Dave Dombrowski. Greatest of all time. Sad to see him go, but let's hope Avila. One last note. Avila did say that he wanted to add starting pitching, and he is going to look out of house for free agents for a bullpen this winter. That was the best comment I've heard a fucking GM say for the Tigers in the many years, because Dombrowski never did that. So, hope for the best, guys. Have a good one. Go Tigers.